You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hi everybody, Alex here. We are rocking on to day 19 of our Flowing with Your Cycle series. Super excited that you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we talk about detoxing though, I just wanted to make sure that you heard about our Ultimate Hormone Health Blueprint training, which is totally free. We only do it about once a year, and it's a series we put on. It's a video series that culminates in a live training where we hang out with you, we answer questions, we'll chat, and we would love for you to join us. Okay, so there's a link below, but essentially you can also go to zestyginger.com/hormone blueprint, all one word, all lowercase letters. So that is going to be kicking off on September 7th. And there are also going to be all sorts of bonuses and freebies and giveaway things that we talk about at that time. So definitely don't miss out if you or anyone else that you know, and let's face it, the numbers show that you absolutely know people like this, but if you know women who are struggling with their health and anything hormone related, even when people have, especially actually if people haven't put together symptoms like low energy, fatigue, erratic energy throughout the day, you pop out of bed, you're fine, you crash in the afternoon, or vice versa, you drag all morning and you have a second wind at night. If you have acne, if you have infertility, PCOS, endometriosis, right, all of those are fair game too. You're reaching for your phone 200 times a day, you feel all out of control, you do things like that you don't want to do, all kind of neurotransmitter, hormone. It's really important to recognize that our daily experiences, what it feels like to be part of our body, is also hormone related. So unless we are at a place of thriving where we are like great energy, creativity, productivity, we're passionate, we got high libido, the fertility is an option for us if we would like it. It doesn't have to be, but that is all of the thriving activities that the body wants to be at and wants to function, and that's where we all kind of crave being. Anyone that you know that's not in that category and is interested in doing the work to get there, we absolutely would love to have you and all your friends that you have like this join us for the Ultimate Hormone Health Blueprint, because we're going to really explain and do a lot of teaching around how do you systematically approach your health to get the results that you want. Because Megan and I did the decade plus run around, and it felt so difficult to just sort of knock about and struggle and not know what to do and second guess and see people who aren't helpful and reinforce those beliefs that I'll never get better. It does not have to be that hard. That is why we are here, right? That is the whole point of us having the podcast, the teaching. Everything that we do is based off, we believe women deserve better, and we are here to help that along, right? We have the map. We can go back and look at what we did and kind of knock out all the things that wasted our time, didn't work, weren't helpful. We can get all of that out of the way for you so that you are coming towards your health in a much more easy flowing, less frustrating sort of way. So don't miss out on that. Starts September 7th. Bring your friends, and that is zestyginger.com/ hormone blueprint. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? So detoxing. Detoxing is the physiologic, kind of what the body is working on, name of the game when it comes to phases 3 and 4. And this is a sticking point for people because I think when people relate or have been told that they may have high levels of a hormone, like estrogen dominance, then it makes sense to focus on detoxifying. However, even people not in that category, when even now, today, when Megan and I are where we are, where we check in on our hormones ourselves, obviously. We have, we're keeping track of everything. We're ovulating regularly. Things are balanced. We still incorporate gentle kind of daily detox tools around this time because the way we break down hormones, even at a normal level, still determines how we experience our bodies and the symptoms that come up, right? The experiences that we have as we interpret them as symptoms. So, for example, you can have well-balanced hormones for the most part, but sending them down the right pathway is still a step of keeping them that way. Now, the more balanced you get, and the more reserves, like the body, actually, the healthier reserves that you have, where you're nowhere near that line in the sand that gets you from I'm cruising along to all of a sudden, boom, symptoms, right? There's often, you can lose a lot of reserve before you get to symptom land. And so as you build up those reserves back, the small things or even big things, much less impactful because you're nowhere near kind of the cutoff where your body says, okay, I can't compensate anymore. Here you go. I'm having a conversation with you through symptoms to express what is happening, right? So all of that, that's the goal. And as you go, there's less and less work to do, though what we have found is that health in any way is always, there's always a component of maintenance the same way. I think a lot of people are like, oh no, that means you haven't really healed, but it's the same goes for healthy movement, right? Just because you got into shape once doesn't mean you never have to work out again. Or if you started eating a salad today and you want to eat that way, you just keep making that choice, right? So it becomes a maintenance thing and obviously much less big of a deal. Life gets busy and we don't do that kind of stuff for a while. Nothing, major really falls out of that because that's the whole point of having the reserves. But even with normal levels, that can be the case. Now, when it comes to low levels, it's still super duper important. So both extremes, whether they're high or they're low, it becomes even more important to support breaking down the hormones when the hormone levels are low, but it has to be done in a very cautious way because we're not trying to kind of over process the hormones that we have. And that's why gentle things like dry skin brushing, and that's why we have all sorts of episodes about detox symptoms and our stance on not pushing it too hard, right? A lot of people that we see, the reason that they take things like lemon water and chlorophyll and dry skin brushing, and then they go ham on it, right? Thinking, well, I feel the detox symptoms, that must be good. And it's not that. It's not always, and I will actually say usually, that's not the goal. We are not trying to push the body so hard. This is like the opposite of no pain, no gain, right? Because when we put the body into that state, we've already talked about what the stress response does to the body and how it's kind of the antithesis of what we're trying to do with hormones. Therefore, it's all about gentleness no matter where you are, but the detox discussion is just part of the hormone process because hormones are metabolized. And those metabolites often have activity, period. So that is why sometimes people get a little confused about this because they're like, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me. It applies to the majority of people who have hormones, which, you can put that together in terms of how many people that is. All right, so with the detoxing component, this is where there's lots of different options for detoxing because there's many components of detoxing organ systems, right? A lot of times people say detox, and what they really are talking about is liver. But just as a reminder, the liver, the lungs, the kidneys, the lymphatics, the gallbladder, the colon, all are part of that as well. Okay, so there's multiple systems, which is cool because then there are many choices for how you want to support that, right? And that for someone like, or for people like Megan and I, who we thrive off variety. We love having options to choose from, and we incorporate them in our lives, kind of whichever ones jive with us at the moment. That also means that the people who really like to have, one thing at a time and do it consistently, right? You also have a lot of choices out of all of that bundle. Which one do I feel like I want to do that with, right? Which one stands out to me the most? And so options end up being great. In the beginning, I think sometimes the options make it feel like, gosh, I can't upkeep with all of this stuff. Upkeeping with all of it is not the point. The point of options is to say, at this place where I am, and with me connecting to myself and listening to what I need, which one or ones do I want to incorporate? It's all about the option and the presence of choice for customization and personalization and doing the things that feel good to you. And that is the role for that, not do all of these things. Now you have 10,000 more things on your to-do list, right? So that is why, while there's lots of the juices, right? Cranberry juice added to water, pomegranate juice helps with detoxification, but in a different way than the cranberry. Sometimes I mix them, right? Warm lemon water in the morning, dry skin brushing, lymphatic drainage massage, ending your regular shower on contrasting hot and cold for 20 seconds at a time. Super great lymphatic workout, and the vast majority of people that get back to us about that find that they love it, even though in the beginning they're like, why on earth would I want to blast myself with cold water, and why are you telling me that you think that I'll like it? Right? I feel like that's insane. But a lot of people do, and when someone doesn't, we're like, cool, doesn't work with you, doesn't mean anything. So that's where you get to pick other things. Rebounding is in that category. Castor oil packs. All of these are options for supporting detoxification organs and making sure that we're breaking down our hormones. What I want to also add today that's different than the detox discussions that I've had in other seasons, right? In season 1, if you're still figuring out all the nitty gritty things to actually do, like physically in your world, there's going to be many options in that season 1 as I talk about phases 3 and 4 in all of the categories. So that is available. What I want to add today, though, is the concept of detoxing other components of our lives. And for one big one, actually, is social media detox, right? So people have different reactions about this because some of us fully accept that we are addicted to our social media, or don't think that there's a problem. And there's some of us who are very much worried about the effects of social media and feel a lot of guilt and shame around it. No matter how you feel, though, one of the things that detoxing from social media does is that it clears some mental space. You're detoxing other people's agendas, thoughts, opinions, and it gives you your own time to come to some of these conclusions. This ends up being really helpful for getting back to the idea that these electronics and social media platforms, especially if you have a business or anything, super duper helpful. There's lots of things to learn. That's why we're on Instagram. If it was all bad, our business wouldn't do it, right? So there's lots of great aspects to social media and technology and all of that stuff. But sometimes what can happen is that we are, instead of it being of service to us, we feel like it's controlling us, because especially if you've ever sat there and you're like, I should go do that thing, and then your thumb kind of like keeps scrolling, and you have that thought like, wait, didn't I just think to go on? And then you're still doing it, right? That is the kind of stuff that begins to add up over time, where we don't trust ourselves. We lose some of that aspect of like, when I say X, I respond with Y, and it's an internal kind of integrity thing. And when we do that and don't consciously think about it, or actually, make decisions around it, it weakens that relationship with ourselves, because then we wonder, can I really trust what I'm going to do based on what it is that I want to be doing? And so there's lots of layers to it, right? It's not only just that, but what I was saying earlier, with lots of competing voices. And it's easy to be like, yeah, my health isn't where I want it to be. My relationship isn't where I want it to be. My work isn't going as well as I'd like it to be. That seems like kind of stressful to go dig into that. Let me zone out to social media. Now, I think I don't tend to be extreme in either way. I think that there's absolutely a time and a place to go zone out, if that is the best thing for you right then. But generally speaking, that is not something that ends up being repetitively helpful, right? If you are making the conscious decision to have a Netflix and lounge around in bed day and stare at social media because you need that rest, that is totally cool, I think. This is all my interpretation, obviously, but I'm just telling you my thoughts. I think that there's a time and a place for that, but when we sort of systematically avoid aspects of things that we don't want to look at and spend time there, it really does begin to chip away at our self-esteem and our own trust within ourselves. So, social media detox, what does this look like? It can be as short or as long as you want. However, we have found that 3 days is a pretty good number for people, in that it's long enough that you get out of the space where you're constantly reaching for it and then realizing it, that you took it off your phone or whatever it is that you did, right? You kind of get out of that a little bit and see what life is like without the constant impulse that reaching for that does, where you're essentially interrupting yourself each time you do that from something else that you potentially might be doing. So 3 days can get there. Sometimes people feel like once they reach that spot, it feels so good that they want to continue, in which case, cool, obviously that's fine. And then sometimes people get to that point relatively quickly, and then they want to put it back. So this is going to be completely up to you in terms of what parameters you set. The only thing there is that, don't set it too short out of fear, like I can't do it, because there are strategies to go around that. So if it's just consciously you want to take a day off, cool. But if you're like, I'll only do a day because I can't be trusted, there's going to be some strategies. Now, if you want to do a day and prove to yourself you can, great. I think that builds a lot of confidence in ourselves. However, there are a couple things that we have found helpful. For one, it's nice to share with other people what you're doing, so that people around you, if you have them, can help be on board, right? Sometimes all we need to say is, gosh, I really would love to check social media right now. And the person's like, yeah, I hear you, like, but you've been doing so great, right? And sometimes we just need a little encouragement. So that can be helpful. Sometimes having a friend that does it with you, like when Megan and I do it together, then we have, essentially frees up time, and we use that time to have fun with each other. So that can be cool too. With the practicality of it, a lot of times for me, I reflexively reach for my phone, and my finger goes to the apps faster than, my brain realizes, like, we're not doing that now. Sometimes deleting them completely off your phone is helpful. One thing that I have found that's not as kind of permanent for a while, if you don't, there's sometimes people don't want to lose the data from it, but if you don't want to remove it completely, I move mine to a different folder and a different screen on my phone, and I put what I do want to be doing, the icon, in place of that. So for example, if my Instagram is on one location and I would like to not be on social media, I want to read more, I'll move my Instagram app to a completely different place on my phone, different folder, different screen, and I'll put the Kindle app in that location, right? Or if it's WhatsApp or whatever, then I'll swap those two. Whatever it is, maybe it's like your pictures, and then when you click it, all of a sudden you're looking at the pictures of your own phone that make you feel happy. Like, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be Kindle, but just consider swapping it to a location that's different. And then the reflex, I have found when I do this, I really like reading. So when I click my Kindle and I'm like, oh, well, I'm here and I was actually wanting to zone out, I'll just read. There have been times where I'm reading multiple books a week and it's great. I'm learning a bunch of stuff, and then I come back to social media. Now, if your business or your work is on social media, this does become trickier, right? So sometimes it's weekends. And sometimes, especially if you have a team or if you can have shared responsibilities, Megan and I have set up our business, and you've probably noticed, where we alternate weeks where who is in charge of social media, and it's different for different platforms, and it's different depending on the season that we're in. Hopefully you can see just from watching us, we go through seasons too, and we don't make that mean as much, right? Like, yes, the thinking is your business should be posting consistently all the time, or you're not going to have you're not going to have followers and whatever, and Instagram won't like you. Well, you know what? I would rather like me than have Instagram like me. Or, I'd rather reach slightly fewer people right in this moment to make sure that I have the health and the mental sanity to continue doing this for the rest of my life. And that will ultimately be much more impactful, and we will help more people that way than sacrificing all of that just to have it look perfect right now, burn out, not feel great, and not make the impact we want to make, right? So this is where listen to the voices in your head and ask, do I want to be buying into this? Because really, Megan and I posted for years and years and years, burned ourselves out, and it is only after the burnout that we had the insight to just ask, okay, well, that's what people say, but it's not working for us, right? And that's where we started messing with the model and started challenging some of those beliefs. And now I'm like, we'll be doing this forever this way, because I don't feel the need to be like, oh my gosh, I can't keep up with this. This is just terrible, right? Like, there's none of that, because at each point when you're asking what's going to work for me, you just make it work for you. And there's actually, it turns out, no authority that's standing over you being like, oh, you're doing your business wrong, or you're doing your, right? Like, in the grand scheme of things, when we are our own authority, there's a lot less fear of what are people going to judge me. Now, if you have a job and an employer, obviously they have some say, but even within that, there's certainly wiggle room in a lot of different ways. This looked very different when I was, in residency, as you can imagine, and still there were the choices that I got to make and make it work for me, even within the parameters of someone else interfacing and having different tools. The other thing that can work in either in place of a social media reset or in addition to is actually meditating with some sensory deprivation components of it. So this is where, even if you breathe quietly and you don't call it meditation, right? Whatever you feel like gets you into that state connected to you, or breathing exercises, hypnosis, whatever you got. But there is some really fun aspects and things to learn about yourself when we do those activities of getting quiet and go even further into that quiet space. So this is meditating or breathing with an eye mat, something to cover your eyes, and maybe even earplugs, right? Covering your ears. So you're just having the experience of being with you. There's not the external noise. There's not that. And there are float tanks for this. And if you want to and you drive with that, they're super fun. But this is one of those where you don't have to go to a float tank to have a portion of that experience. Like, our float tank's kind of cool to go to, and yes, but an eye mask and an earplug meditation is something I do for free, kind of at my house routinely. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to get wet. All of that stuff goes into it, and so check out how that sounds. As a general rule, the things that we resist the hardest, like deleting social media, or being in silence with ourselves, it's a good thing to question that if you really feel pushback away from something that you're like, well, that sounds like it would be good, they usually tell, for Megan and I, is like, that means I need to at least explore it. Right? This isn't a game of making yourself do things you don't want to do. And yet there's a difference in saying, I recognize this as a growth experience, and I realize that my resistance to this is coming from a place of playing small, not being real clear, not having the understanding of myself to really show up in all the different ways that I want to. And if that is happening, that's where, doing the hard thing anyways. That's the feel the fear and do it anyways. It's a really powerful way to safely grow, because this isn't go do zip lining. This is sit quietly in your room or whatever. That is a different level of fear. And so there, with that, if you really resist it, it's an opportunity to ask, why does my brain and my beliefs, why do they feel so threatened by this? And once you ask the question, warning, but you can't unask it. Like, you will know. You will know ultimately. We can kind of deny it, but usually those things end up coming back, because if it's a directive from our own internal self of like, I need quiet and to really feel into how I feel, it will either keep coming up until you do it, or Megan and I's little buddy called rock bottom will come make it happen either way, right? And it's the same with health. It's like, if we don't address and make time for getting healthy now, we'll make time for being sick later. And either way, if we need that, we will get it. And when we ask, why is that coming up for me as kind of a threat? Why do I have resistance around it? We get to work on that before kind of life necessitates that. And oh boy, is that an easier way to go than when it comes to get you. All right, so thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be back tomorrow again, of course. We are just cruising along. Can't believe we are as far as we are already. This has been so fun for me. Thank you for joining, and I'm sending you a big hug and lots of love.
Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare, and we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads, and we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these podclasses helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.